Sveicināti visiem.
Hi everyone. I'm going to speak into Latvian. I presume that you will be able to read my presentation, which is drafted in English. We already heard that knowledge territories is one of the instruments for urban development, and this is one of the things we can take home from our today's work. And if we focus on Pārdaugava, it is not a knowledge territory yet. We have several academic centers here, and we are going to discuss about the transition towards this knowledge territory. And there are several ways of doing this. First of all, we have to think about the cultivation of this transition process from knowledge creation to knowledge dissemination. This process needs cultivating, and cooperation and planning are the critical steps here. And the background here is the great exodus, where the campuses exit the right bank of the river Daugava and enter the left bank. And in this case, Pārdaugava is the new Wild West, where there is a lot of room for development. We have 4 higher education establishments where the number of students is growing. So here you can see the 4 universities: the Riga Stradiņš University, Risebu, which is a small private university, Riga Technical University, and the University of Latvia, those red circles. And currently these high schools are cooperating on a quite small scale. In addition to the story, we have to consider the plans by the development department of the Riga City Council, where they have foreseen some development of knowledge territories already closer to the river of Daugava. And hopefully we will receive some support from the Riga City Council, which is important for the knowledge territory to develop. And we have to take into account that our Ministry of Education wants to make our education international. We want to attract foreign students and facilitate their moving to our country. And we have to understand that campuses are not going to become knowledge territories on their own. We will have to direct this process. We will have to involve an institution, a council, which will hopefully not be merely formal, but will actually be able to do things. And hopefully we will be able to cultivate the ecosystem, and we will benefit when many parties come together. We arrive to common benefit. However, we will also need to solve the housing situation. The number of students on the left bank, the number of foreign students, they will all have to be placed somewhere. And Mr. Auers already said that the number of students is increasing rapidly in Latvia. Our growth is really quick. And in 2013, we had 2,600 students, which is not much for Latvia. And currently, we have 5.5 thousand students. It is about 100% increase in just 2 years. And this is quite a lot for any territory that is trying to cope with such increases. And depending on the scenario, this number could double or increase by 1/3. However, housing will remain topical, this is for certain, and housing is needed for the students to stay here and not be a mere transit territory, so that this territory can provide an added value. And we think that the housing issue would be interesting for our market players as well, because foreign students pay 18 million euros for accommodation annually, and 83% spend about 4,300 euros during one academic year purely on rent. And 53% of students choose apartments, 40% choose dormitories, and only 7% decide to use their own property in Riga. And we know that all the universities are struggling to find free rooms in dormitories. And when foreign students come, their demands are much higher, and they simply won't stay in those dormitories. So we have to think about the needs of students aged 18 to 23 and older, and we have to provide housing to them. And the OECD research shows that only 13% of the entire property stock is available for rent in our country. And we are mostly building private houses, not residential buildings. And thus the shortage of accommodation in our part of the city, Pārdaugava. And we have to make a transition from those academic centers where students come and live to the territories where students actually stay. And now we have to face the increase of student numbers, and we have to face the insufficient accommodation. And now numbers again. This year at Celmiņš University, 7,000 students came, and here you can see numbers for the other universities. And in 2023, the numbers have increased significantly. So we are already exceeding the 30,000 students in this small territory, in this academic mile, where the accommodation issue is quite a challenge. We have to solve this, avoiding hurting the local inhabitants. The charm of this city part was really felt in this movie, and we have to think about proper solutions. In Australia, the higher education is the second most popular export product. It is really profitable, and providing housing for students is a question of economy. Here you can see the number of foreign students in 2023, and this is the pessimistic prediction. There are more optimistic projections that show larger numbers. So Stradiņš University, Riseba, Riga Technical University, and the University of Latvia. Those of you who live in Pārdaugava, you understand that this increase of population is going to be dramatic. Can we make 500 housing units? No? Well, then how are we going to deal with all those student flows? If we do not solve this problem, the navigation across the river Daugava will continue, and even even the other bank of the city is close to its maximum capacity. There are also accommodation issues there. And here you can see projections by 2023, and the National Library will be attracting students as well, and Rail Baltica will be the line connecting us with Europe. This is the reality now. This is the current University of Latvia campus. Approximately 2,000 students live on this bank of river, and there are also many employees living here. And currently the building density is quite low in this area. And if 15,000 students come here, there are calculations that this influx could create the need for about 12,000 office employees. And the question is, how can we provide housing for all these people? And how do we create connections with the Rail Baltica line? We have several conclusions here. First of all, the housing supply is insufficient, and the supply is lagging behind the demand. Foreign students are not willing to live in the Latvian dormitories, and it is not sustainable to make people travel across the river for their studies and back. And here we are talking about issues that should be there on our agenda. The good news is that the population density in Pārdaugava is quite low, especially in the neighborhood of Torņakalns. It resembles a village rather than a city, and if the developers notice this potential, there will have to be negotiations among ministries in order to develop this territory. If we miss this chance, we will be guilty for the opportunities not used. Academic centers are not knowledge territories themselves. We should not expect the impossible from them, and we have to understand this. Academic centers simply educate students, and they also do some innovations, but they cannot provide all this synergy that is necessary and that we heard about today. We have to set the priorities in the right way in order for us to move towards knowledge territories. We need close cooperation with the city and state institutions, but universities alone cannot solve this. We would like to think that The development can take place only if stakeholders proceed swiftly and cooperate in a swift manner. If we want this territory to be interesting not only for students and researchers but also for those involved in the economy, we have to solve mobility issues and we have to receive public support. If we have green territories, it is good, but often these green territories are not really active and their potential remains unused. And the universities involved, the Riga planning region, the stakeholders are looking for opportunities to establish a coordinating institution that would not be a pure formality, but a real driver for the future. Thank you.